Hello, my name is Liza Maria, and today on my podcast, I'm glad to have as a guest Gary Gilbert, which has a passion for space, and he also trained at the International Space University in French. And one of his dreams was to inspire young girls to reach for the stars. So, hello, Gary. How are you doing today? And welcome on my
I'm doing,
podcast.
well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. And I'm doing pretty good this morning. It's Monday morning, and here in Florida, and it's pretty nice actually. It rained a little bit earlier, but that's about it.
That's great. So, to start this podcast, can you tell us more about your background with space and how you became a space enthusiast?
Well, I grew up in the '60s, and my main focus was space. Actually wanting to be an astronaut, but I couldn't because I wore glasses, and at the time, back in the early '80s, you couldn't, unless you were a pilot, you couldn't, couldn't be an astronaut. And wearing glasses, I couldn't be a pilot. So, but mainly I was really into Star Trek Next Generation. Sorry, Star Trek, the original series. And then also I remember when I graduated from high school in 1979, there was a show out called Space 1999. And I got to thinking, that's 20 years away. We can have a moon base by then. We went to to the moon in less than a decade, and that's 2 decades away. And here it is, close to 50 years of it since we've been back. But I've been really into Star Trek Next Generation, pretty much any science fiction um, type movie, books, TV series, stuff like that.
Well, I think that's really nice. And I know you also wrote your own book. So, how did you get the idea of writing your book? And can you tell us more about it?
Yes, just 1 second, please. The book, I don't know if you can see it, but it's Space Girls 2, 21 women write about their careers on Earth in the space industry. And what happened is I went to the International Space University in Strasbourg, France back in 2011. And out of my class of, I believe it was 30, 40, I want to say 40 students, we had like 11 or 12 women. And one of them became a pretty good friend of mine. And let's just say that she was not hurting for money, but special trips. Like I was able to go to Moscow and go to their space program, and she wasn't able to because of some financial reasons. So thought there should be a scholarship to help women get be able to do stuff like that. So I over the years I thought about it, and finally a few years ago, 2 years or so ago, I was actually able to get a hold of 21 women, and they contributed their stories and what got them interested. The book is actually, I'm trying to get it into all the schools here in the United States and overseas. Starting off with the Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. I think there's like 50,000 schools, 6th through 12th grade, just here in the States. And so I plan on getting the book out there, and possibly get it overseas also.
You mentioned you're from Florida. So, what are you up to these days other than space?
Right now, I'm actually working on this as a almost a full-time job. I have a couple of other business ideas I'm trying to get going, but this is my main focus. It's part of a bigger plan that I have that I want to accomplish in my life. Um, I guess you could say I worked other things up until last 4 or 5 years to pay the bills, and now I'm doing what I actually want to do.
We might have some people here that are listening that might want to know what's your favorite documentary because you also mentioned in the beginning, do you have a favorite one these days?
Documentary, not really. I don't really have a favorite. Anything space related, I like listening to and talking about. There's several that just are, I guess you could say, I believe in it. My belief is that the our future should be kind of like Star Trek Next Generation, first contact movie, where things are pretty much everything is working a lot better than it is now, economically and medically and all the other different ways. Instead of being out here for the money, we should be out, trying to go to other planets and other universes. So hopefully, I mean, I probably will never see it, but if someone asked me a week or so ago, who would they go, who volunteers to go to Mars? I raised my hand. And then the person said, who volunteers to go one way to Mars? I raised my hand again. I believe that we should be on other planets, and so therefore, any way that I can contribute. The book, like I said, is written for 6th to 12th grade girls, and who knows? Hopefully, you know, a 6th to 12th grade girl may read it, be inspired by it, have her own daughter, and maybe 100 years or so from now, we'll have fast, almost as fast as light travels. That if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes. And did any specific space mission or project influence the content in your book when you wrote it?
Uh, no, not really, not specific. Like I said, I have actually the 21 women that contributed their stories. Some are toward, are at the beginning of their careers, some are in the middle, and some are towards the end. And so there's just different things that they decided, to do. And, some of them, one of the ladies is a quality insurance inspector. I don't know if you know, but there's a picture that went around of a satellite that wasn't, the bolts weren't tight enough and it fell over and did millions of dollars worth of damage, and that's just, a quality assurance issue. And then you have, so many other women that have been part of the space program. For example, the actor Jack Black, his mother, there's a post on Facebook where they say his mother, was working on the Apollo program, went and gave birth to him, and then 2 or 3 days later came back and worked on Apollo program again. So there's all kinds of women that are in the space program that you don't really hear about, and that was the main gist of me doing this book. If you go to a lot of the gift shops, they have books about the astronauts, the female astronauts, but not very many of the ladies behind the scenes. For example, Janet Petro, is KSC director, and she's also the acting NASA director as of a few weeks ago. I'm not sure. I haven't heard if there's been a change. Charlie Blackwell, she's the first launch director, female launch director, And also, as of a year or two ago, the crawler, that took the space shuttle and all the other rockets out to the pad, there's only 6 people qualified to drive it, and one of them is a woman. So I just thought that's really awesome. Out of 8 billion people, and 6 of them, can drive that crawler, and like one of them is a woman. So I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I think that's really incredible. And the last question here is, what's your advice for someone young that likes space and they want to work with space?
Well, first of all, I would say there's so many different ways to be part of the space program. So whatever it takes you can do, if is just to get behind it, study, and never give up. That's probably the biggest thing, is never, ever, ever, ever give up.
Well, thank you so much for joining me here today on my podcast. And it was really nice talking with you and wish you all the best.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.